I'm starting a sculpture of Sanshi from the 12 Kingdoms. This is where the sculpture is at right now. So first I start with building a wire armature. I recommend using 16 gauge wire. And I'm using regular Reynolds wrap everyday foil compared to the heavy duty version because it's easier to compress if I need to adjust it later on. I wrap everything in masking tape so that I lock in the shape and the foil's not shifting too much while I'm adding the clay. For this build, I decided to try this foam clay. I'm not sure how you pronounce the brand, and I picked this specific version of foam clay because I like the packaging, and I thought like, alright, if I could make clothes like that from this clay, this would be really nice. For first impressions, it's soft, it's lightweight, it seems easy to handle. I start applying it to the armature and I'm blocking in the shapes. I try using water to smooth it out, but it's not really smoothing as well as other clays I used, such as polymer clay or epoxy clay, that you could really, when you smooth the two halves together, you can make the seam line disappear. Here, I'm having a really difficult time making that seam line be invisible. It tends to drag and leaves uneven levels. So at this stage, I decided to just focus up on building up volume instead of trying to sculpt fine details. I'm working from the legs upward this time instead of starting with the face to control kind of like the overall scale of the figure, because I don't want it to get too much bigger than what I mapped out here. I tend to always sculpt bigger. You could already see that things aren't perfectly symmetrical. I tried doing 3D sculpting at one point with ZBrush, but it didn't hold my interest, and I had such a hard time rotating the clay on with the XYZ plane. So I'm like, I just want to do regular clay. I didn't I like the texture, holding it in your hand, so I don't know if I'll ever go back to 3D sculpting. But detail work is definitely harder with this clay. Shaping forms like the feet takes a bit more effort since the clay doesn't hold crisp edges very well. And smoothing again just doesn't behave the way that I'm used to. Adding water helps slightly, but too much makes it sticky instead of smooth. And the different color clays seem to have slightly different textures. I move on to the human part of the sculpt, building up the torso and the chest with the skin tone clay. And again, I'm just blocking out shapes because there's no way I could do nice detail. I leave the face for last so I could better control the proportions relative to the body. So I can make the face a little bit smaller, because I feel like if I got a really nice face, I would want to match the body to it. And this is where, again, I feel like the limitations of the foam clay for my sculpting style stand out. It's difficult for me to get clean edges, refine smaller features without the surface tearing or shifting. And now the clay takes a really long time to dry, like weeks, instead of like days. Even is better than weeks, but so I can't sand it properly or refine anything yet. And this is like such difference from, like, say, polymer clay that I could just bake in the oven whenever I want, or even like epoxy clay like Magic Sculpt that it'll be fine to sand within a few hours, or at worst like the next day. And this is what the current state of the sculpture looks like. There are so many things I need to fix, such as making like maybe the legs more symmetrical, smoothing the surface, refining and adding details. But I have to wait for this to fully dry, so I'm gonna go back to this project maybe in like a month or two, and in part 2 I'll show how I sand, fix the proportions, and start adding all those nice details.